It's not just Democrats who oppose this CR. Several Republicans did as well. All of today, Mr. President, we have endeavored to reach an agreement with President Trump and the Republicans that would have not only spared a government shutdown, but cemented an agreement on spending caps, including those for our military, the health care issues, disaster relief, and immigration issues. President Trump reached out to me this morning, to invite me to the White House to talk all of these issues over, and I accepted. We had a lengthy and substantive discussion. During the meeting, in exchange for strong DACA protections, I reluctantly put the border wall on the table for discussion. Even that was not enough to entice the president to finish the deal. Many Democrats don't want to go that far on the border. Many Republicans don't either. But we were willing to compromise with the president to get an agreement. In the room, it sounded like the president was open to accept it. This afternoon, in my heart, I thought we might have a deal tonight. That was how far we'd come. That's how positive our discussion felt. We had a good meeting. But what has transpired since that meeting in the Oval Office is indicative of the entire tumultuous and chaotic process Republicans have engaged in the negotiations thus far. Even though President Trump seemed to like an outline of a deal in the room, he did not press his party in Congress to accept it. Speaker Ryan and Leader McConnell, without the commitment of the president, would not agree to accept anything either. What happened to the President Trump, who asked us to come up with a deal and promised that he'd take heat for it? What happened to that president? He backed off at the first sign of pressure. We had the outline of a deal on caps. We had the outline of a deal on health care. We had the outline of a deal on immigration, the toughest issue. It was real. It was an honest-to-goodness breakthrough. We could have passed a short-term extension of funding so that we could cross the T's, dot the I's, and be done with it all. But the dynamic of the past few weeks, during which the congressional Republicans looked to the president for guidance and the president provided none, prevailed again today, unfortunately. The same chaos, the same disarray, the same division and discord on the Republican side that's been in the background of these negotiations for months, unfortunately, appears endemic. It is standing in the way of bipartisan solutions to all of the issues now before us. Every American knows the Republican Party controls the White House, the Senate, the House. It's their job to keep the government open. It's their job to work with us on a way to move things forward. But they didn't reach out to us once on this CR. No discussion, no debate, nothing at all. It was produced without an ounce of Democratic input and dropped on our laps. And meanwhile, they can't even get on the same page as a party. They control every branch of the legislative process, and it's their responsibility to govern. And here, they have failed. Several Republicans voted against the CR, as well as Democrats, for the same reason we voted against it. One of the most serious consequences of having continuing resolution after continuing resolution is the damage it does to our military. As the Pentagon spokesman said last night, another CR would be wasteful and destructive to our military. The Navy Secretary said that because of CRs, the Navy has put $4 billion in the trash can, poured lighter fluid on it, and burnt it. That's the Navy Secretary, because what you have done. This is no way to conduct the nation's business. Republicans know it. Democrats know it. The American people know that this party is not capable of governing. So where do we go from here? I believe many of my Republican colleagues sincerely want to get a deal. I know their hearts are in the right place. I know they lament the fact that we now accept brinksmanship where bipartisanship used to be. In the past, there was always discussions in these issues. Everyone knew in the Senate you needed both parties to work together. None of that happened here today. Now, all of this problem is because Republican leadership can't get to yes because President Trump refuses to. Mr. President, President Trump, if you are listening, I am urging you, please take yes for an answer. The way things went today, the way you turned from a bipartisan deal, it's almost as if you were rooting for a shutdown. And now we'll have one. And the blame should crash entirely on President Trump's shoulders. This will be called the Trump shutdown. This will be called the Trump shutdown because there is no one who deserves the blame for the position we find ourselves in more than President Trump. He walked away from 2 bipartisan deals, including one today in which I even put the border wall on the table. What will it take for President Trump to say yes and learn how to execute the rudiments of government? Tomorrow marks a year to the day President Trump took the oath of office on the Capitol steps. Unfortunately, a Trump shutdown would be a perfect encapsulation of the chaos he's unleashed on our government. Instead of bringing us all together, he's pulled us apart. Instead of governing from the middle, he's outsourced his presidency to the extremes. Instead of living up to the great deal maker he marketed himself to be, he's been the single driving force in scuttling bipartisan deals in Congress. And now, at this late hour, his behavior is on the verge of grinding our government to a halt, a Trump shutdown. Democrats will continue to strive for a bipartisan agreement on all of the outstanding issues. I know there are men and women of goodwill on the other side of the aisle who are just as upset as I am with the direction we're headed in. I plead with them to see reason and prevail upon their leaders, and most of all the President, to give us the space to work together, to let us do the job the American people sent us here to do. When President Trump decides he is finally ready to lead his party to a deal, Democrats will be ready, willing, and eager to clinch it. There is a path forward. We can reach it quickly. Tomorrow, the President and the 4 leaders should immediately sit down and finish this deal so the entire government can get back to work on Monday. I yield the floor.